Hello, and welcome back to Elden Ring. This is part 6 of our intelligence run through the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. Last time, we went through Bellerot Tower Settlement, and we got a good amount of dialogue from Hornsent Grandam, the Horn Scent, plenty of dialogue from Saransbach, and we got some stuff from Talier. Items-wise, we got ourselves the Crusade Insignia, the Ash of War Shriek of Sorrow, the Bone Bow, the Dried Bouquet, Immunizing Horn Charm plus 2, a guaranteed Horned Warrior Sword, the Poisoned Hand, Remembrance of the Dancing Lion, Divine Beast Head, Watchful Spirit, Scorpion Stew, and Talier's Concoction. And this time we are starting out here on the map by going from High Road Cross north, and then once you get through this encampment area, instead of hitting Shadow Keep, you turn right and then head down. Or you can just go right directly before hitting the encampment, though that gets you less items. But still, we are here just west of this pond section where we can get the Highland armor set. And then we can make our way down. Here there's a bed. Yeah, this is the DLC version of the Rune Bear from the base game. But seeing as it's the DLC version, it's far more aggressive. And it's got new moves. Which is very cool and very scary. Especially when it just slowly walks towards you. Love to see it, but also hate to see it. I feel like I rolled that too early. I feel like that should have hit me. But we did it, and we got the Pelt of Ralva. Which I don't think goes with any armor set. But as you can see, it's like a bear headpiece, and then you got a claw hanging out the back. But some armor sets cut the paw part off. I don't know why, but some do that. But now we can head over here and we can start making our way through the ruins base. Rauh base. Now, I don't know if I'm going crazy or what, but to me, the game sounds very, very loud. And I hope that's not coming through on the recording side, but I got on and was having some audio issues, and this sounded very loud to me. Like, you may notice that whenever there's stuff like this, I don't talk. Oh, great bow, nice. But the reason for that is the audio for me is so loud that I physically cannot hear myself talk. So, yeah, very, very loud for me. Again, I hope it's not coming through on the recording side, but very noticeable for me. And mind you, like, master volume is at 3, sound effects are at 4, so it's not even like I have super high volume. My volume is actually really low, because I used to have it at either 5, 7, or 10, depending on how I was feeling. But we can run up here. Break that. And that gets us a spirit spring up. And there are only 2 things up there. The first is a painting reward. I didn't grab the painting, but it's east of Scorched Ruins. Like, go straight east and then a little north, and you'll find it. But I don't think you can actually pick up the reward until after you burn the ceiling tree. Could be wrong about that, but I've never managed to find it before burning the ceiling tree. But I have found it multiple times after, even though I always went to look before. But the second thing up there is this. It's another mausoleum. And it's kind of like the giant red bear that we fought, but as a tarnished NPC, basically. So they have like a bear armor set, they have a bear fist weapon, they have a bear incantation, a lot of bear stuff. So if you want to go be a bear, you can go after them. Personally, I don't really care, and so I'm perfectly fine not partaking in that. Shush, 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 shush. I upgraded this to plus 25. So, got that slight damage increase. Nope. Very easy 2-shot. And I said it before, earlier in the run, I'll say it again. I don't see this being like the perfume bottle. I don't see it being a main weapon. Because, like, it's not that good. It's more so just a nice, light side weapon for pure elemental damage. Like this, good for dex builds that want pure fire. This good for dex and face builds that want pure lightning. This good for int and dex builds that want pure magic damage, maybe a bit of frost buildup. And then the frenzy one is, I believe, faith dex. Could be wrong about that, but also fire damage, but also frenzy buildup on top of that. So it's good for that pure elemental damage. And being kind of like a light self-defense weapon. So the way I'm using it now is like, I'm a magic build, and I could either use FP to kill these enemies, or I could leave them alive. But why would I do that when I could have this light, decent enough range, decent enough speed, serviceable damage, just free FP option. It's just a good way to save yourself some FP and have like a self-defense melee weapon. As I said, not great, but just a good little side option. Especially if you're having trouble with, say, like, dogs. Great Glintstone Shard can have trouble killing them because they can run off to the side. A Jeweler's Moonblade can have trouble with them because they're fast. But this, that'll get the job done. Or at least it should. But the thing that we picked up enhances attacks with two-handed weapons. So that's very good for if you're running like a strength build. Have a lot of levels into strength. You know, at least 54. As I said, that's typically where I stop things. But then if you want more damage, you can throw that talisman on. And strength builds are typically my go-to. Not the massive, like, bonk builds or colossal weapons. I'm not super big on those because they feel a bit too slow and clunky for me. But I use greatswords a lot. I'll occasionally use great axes. Maybe a great hammer. I don't have it on me, but the normal, like, basic great hammer, the one that's just a large club, use that sometimes just to swap things up. And so I do a lot of two-handing. And it works well. That talisman. Nope. 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 He's gonna heal. That's fine. As I said, he's got a bear talisman. Ow. My int build bones. They're so weak and fragile. But got him, Red Bear Claw, and then Iron Rivet set. So Iron Rivet, you can run that, or you can throw the Pelt of Rauh on it. Or you can do the Highland set with it, but personally, I think the Iron Rivet set works better. Although, there is something coming up. I won't spoil it, but it's something good. And it's something that we can level up. Yeah, I want to get my endurance to like 40 or 45 before moving on to any of the other stats. Which I invested very heavily into intelligence, because big intelligence is big damage. And I also, like, 29 hours. This is one of my least thorough characters. I mean, a lot of my characters have like 50 or 60 hours on them. So Greybird's Black Quill Armor. But part of that is because in a lot of my other characters, I spend a lot of time doing co-op, and I didn't do any co-op on this character. So that probably shaved down like 15 or so hours. We can ignore that bird. It's fine. What are they possibly gonna do to us? We jumped up here. It's not like birds can fly or anything. Don't be ridiculous. But I also tend to go through and do like every single cave, get every single item, go through all the dialogue. I didn't do that on this character. In there is a cookbook. It is not worth it. It's for fire sprite stones, I think. Which are just this little fire item that you can use and then it'll like bounce across the ground. You'll see it later in the DLC. But it's not that good. I promise. Moving on. But yeah, so just, I was not nearly as thorough on this character, because all I was really concerned about was getting the Carrion Regal Scepter, the Sacrificial Axe, the Errant Sorcerer set, and my talismans. And as long as I got those, I was fine skipping basically everything else. And so I skipped a lot of caves. Like, I normally do all the hero graves. I didn't do any on this character. I normally do pretty much all of the tunnels. I did, I think, 2 or 3 on this character. Because I normally... I mean, I know that I upgraded 3 weapons here. But I normally have, like, 2 normal weapons. Maybe 3 normal weapons. And then maybe 1 special weapon that uses Somber Stones. But here, I wasn't even thinking about the perfume bottle, so I was only doing 1 of each weapon in terms of upgrades. And so, yeah. Now here, it's just northeast of the Red Bear, and just southwest of those 2 bears with the big rock. Right here on the map, so there's this, like, lazy V, and it's just ever so slightly north of the left part of that, where you'll get the Gloried set, which, as you can tell, has the same leg wraps and arm wraps as the Highland set, but this one has some, like, red cloth on top of it. And so it's like the better version of the Highland set. We're gonna summon Demi-Human Swordsman Yosh. I got lucky with that. Ow. That was so incredibly rude. I was just trying to heal like a normal person. Now, you may wonder why I summoned Demi-Human Swordsman Yosh. Because, despite getting hit twice at the very beginning, this boss really isn't that difficult. And I could beat them without Demi-Human Swordsman Yosh. There's a very simple reason why. I want to see how well they do against a highly mobile boss like this. Poor guy. But as you can see, he's got lots of runs, lots of jumps. He's got a lot of stuff that throws him around the battlefield. And I wanted to see how well he did. And he's kind of struggling. He is kind of struggling, but he's also getting attacks off. Rauh of Rugalea, that's the bear incantation that the bear NPC boss used. Real quick, we can show this off. Pretty cool, in my opinion. And you can also throw the Pelt of Rauh on, but for some reason, you don't get the paw that hangs down, which is kind of unfortunate. But the leather set, these two are the same. These two are the same, so obviously they're going to have the same description. Same with these. But for the chest piece, the Highland one that we got first, traditional garb of Highland warriors made from woven fabric and finished with a blue patterned cloth. Highland warriors are known to be hunters of bears. To them, there's no act more glorious than the subjugation of a savage beast. That's why we found it very close to the bear boss. And then here, traditional garb of Highland warriors made from the woven fabric and finished with fur. This garment is made from fabrics with both blue and red patterns. Red pattern fabrics were allowed only to those who hunted bears, the greatest and most glorious of the Highlanders. And that's why it's close to this more difficult bear boss. But I did a run recently. I didn't record it, but I did a run where I wanted to see... That's not worth it, by the way. It's another cookbook. But I wanted to go AFK as much as possible and see just how much Mimic Tier could do. Because everyone always says that Mimic Tier is the best Spirit Ash, and that they're a second to you, and therefore double the value, basically. And I wanted to put that to the test. And so I went through and basically just summoned a Mimic Tier and then sat back and did nothing for the entirety of every single boss. Hi. And so, when we went through Lamenter's jail, I mentioned that I went AFK during that boss fight and still won. That was the run I was talking about. And something that I noticed with that bear boss was that it lasted... Thought I heard something. But that bear boss lasted nearly twice as long as the Mesmer fight. And I came here with... I think it was 18 Skadutru blessings and 8 Revered Spirit Ash blessings. Which is the highest you can get things before heading into Enir Ilum. And so, I had good upgrades, but that fight lasted forever. And the reason why is because I was running around on Torrent to stay away from the boss, because they kept looking at me, even though I never attacked them. But Mimic here was just in a constant state of jogging after the boss, but never actually catching up to the boss. And so, that's why the boss fight lasted so long, because Mimic Tier just never got any attacks off. And so, even though I could have done that boss fight alone, I wanted to summon Demi-Human Swordsman Yosh, just to see if they could keep up with the boss. Which they did. Not super well, but they did fine enough. They really started to struggle once I stopped attacking, and that makes sense. We're gonna put this on for more Deathblade resistance. And one off to the left, yep. Let's see. FP free alternative. see, 2 of those great glintstone shards missed, but that wouldn't have missed, so good to have a melee backup just in case. But anyways, yeah, so Mimic here, generally very good, but they do have some problems. Not worth going into there right now. There's a better spot later on. But even though they're typically really good, they do have some problems. And I'd say the main 2 problems I have with them is that, 1, they're just not smart. Like, Mimic here will just sit there and tank an attack to the face and do nothing about it. And they have no issues doing that whatsoever. They'll just accept getting smacked in the face. And there's some other problems with them not being smart. Like the fact that they just don't attack sometimes. Or on this character, I noticed they would use Renala's Full Moon even when an enemy was, like, let's say an enemy was right here, they would be right here, and they'd still try to pop Renala's Full Moon, and then the enemy would just smack them, and they'd fall, and then they'd do the whole getting up animation, and then they'd pop Renala's Full Moon again, and then get smacked out of it, and, like, it was bad. It was such a sad thing to see. That's something I noticed a lot about these guys is the first time they shoot their thing, there is no wind-up animation. They just look at you and then fire. Which, kind of strange, but also it always gets me, so. Or at least gets me enough to where if I was them, I'd do it too. But yeah, so Mimic here just isn't smart. And the second problem is that anything with mobility just doesn't fear them. So, I mean, for that Red Bear boss that was up here, I think it's here, I didn't have a timer out, but I'd be willing to bet that there was a full, like, 2-minute period where Mimic here just did 0 damage. Because they just couldn't keep up. Pop. And kind of sad, but also here, Black Knight Captain Hugh. The Black Knights were the primary force of Mesmer's army. Second to their first knight commander was Hugh, a man with agile command of both twin blade techniques and the power of the crucible, and whose spirit in these ashes dwells. Although a champion of the divine beast hunt, he followed his father Andreas into rebellion against Mesmer, and like his father, he too was imprisoned in an underground tomb. Mesmer mourned the loss of a brother in arms. So yeah, you can find Andreas he is in the Fog Rift Catacombs, and he has a great hammer and great shield. Now, Hugh... I want to use Hugh in a run. It'll probably be in one of the single weapon class runs. Because, in case you don't know, something I do with these games is single weapon class runs. Where I'll pick a single weapon class, like, say, axes, and I'll go through the entire game only using axes, and I'll go through and I'll get every single axe in the game. And I won't be allowed to use any other weapon class. And I do that partially to mix things up, partially to learn about the weapon classes, their strengths and their weaknesses, which weapon in that weapon class is good, at least in terms of which ones you should get, because of things like accessibility. Because if we can kill this guy, then talk about it. Because, to give an example, one of the axes that I know about is in the Windmill Village. It's the Celebrant's Cleaver. And I've gotten it before because I wanted to do a certain themed character. And, oh boy, that thing took like 4.5 hours to grind. And mind you, my character had 60 points into the arcane stat, and they had the talisman that gives you the Silver Scarab talisman. That gives you plus 75 item discovery. So I had like 240 item discovery, I think, and it still took me multiple hours to get, and it wasn't even that good. This puts you on the other side of the bridge, which allows you to avoid the eyes of those things, which builds up Death Blight. It also gets you the Knight's Lightning Spear incantation, which is one of my favorites. So, highly recommend going that way. And here the eyes move. I don't know exactly why that's there, because you can just hang out in this middle section very easily. See there? The eyes move past it, and then we can easily just jog without having to worry. It's no problem whatsoever. And that's why we shot him. And then here, they shoot. And we can have them shoot the wall, and then well, that's it. Easy. Said it before, I'll say it again. If something is easy for a melee build, it's hard for a magic build. If something is hard for a magic, or if something is hard for a melee build, it's easy for a magic build. Right, sniper shot. Wonderful. We can do all three, why not? Yeah, so for a melee build, you come into here and the two imps drop down, and then that guy fires sorceries. And again, I haven't looked up the sorceries. I might near the end of this run, but I don't think it's a sorcery you can actually get. It, like, goes into the ground and then fires up and then fires back down. And so it hits you twice. And he can even do that when he can't see you. So even if you run up there and into the previous room, he can still hit you with those. So that's supposed to be a challenge. But it's only a challenge for melee builds, because for magic builds, you have Ralva's Full Moon, which you can use as a sniper. And for incantation builds... Hi. Poor guy. But for incantation builds, you have Frenzied Burst, which acts as a sniper shot. And so you can easily just pick them off before they even aggro onto you. Meaning that you don't have to deal with any of them using a single attack. So, I've said it before, I'll keep saying it. If it's easy for one, it's hard for the other. If it's hard for one, it's easy for the other. This one gets you Dragon Bolt Grease, which is like Lightning Grease, but even stronger. And as you can see here, I don't have Fire Grease, I don't have Lightning Grease, I don't have Bleed Grease, which are three things I always have. So yeah, that's a result of me skipping a lot of things on this character. Bloop. It was either my first or second run, I said that I wish that you could go over to these and disable them. But now that I've gotten more used to them, I think they're fine. I would still like to disable them, but as I said, I'm fine with them now. And here we can sip this. That was so rude. No. No. Sir? Please, you're being... Uh-oh. That's a very cool looking attack, though. And that's one of my favorite grab attacks in the entire game. Ow. Sir, please. I just complimented you on your grab attack. So, it would be best if you would calm down and let us sort this out like a couple of reasonable gentlemen. Uh-oh. There's absolutely no need for such unsophisticated behavior. Ow. Did you hear me very rapidly tapping the spacebar? Uh-oh. Ooh. I did not think I was going to stun him out of that. Oh, I thought he was going to have the follow-up thing. Huh. Alright, that's... I forgot to put these on. As soon as I equipped this, I made a mental note saying, hey, remember to put on Bolt Drake and Pearl Drake. Like, take off Blessed Blue. And Prince of Death's Assist for those two. And I forgot to do it. But at 40 mind, this brings us up 30 FP. Now, 60 mind is where you typically want to stop. And if I remember correctly, I believe 60 mind puts you at 300 FP. So, hopefully I'll get to there and then see what this does. Hopefully. But, yeah, beating them also gets you the Death Knight's Long Haft Axe, which is a great axe. And this is one of my go-to weapons. Like, yeah, it takes 18 faith, but I typically have a bit of faith sprinkled into my builds. Like, just trying to think off the top of my head, a normal character stats for me is 45 to 60 health. I completely ignore mine, so whatever that starts out at. I think like 10 for Vagabond, which is my go-to starting class. Endurance, I typically have at 45. Strength, I have... Strength, I typically stop at either 45 to match endurance, or 54 because that's as high as you want to bring it when you two-hand. Dexterity, I have at either whatever it starts out at is, or whatever the bare minimum is for the weapons I'm using. Meaning it almost never goes above, like, 16. Intelligence, I ignore and leave at whatever it starts out as. Same with Arcane, I leave it at whatever it starts out as. And then Faith, I typically get to either 12, 15, or I think 22. $12 because of Bestial Vitality, which is... It gets you, I think, 5 HP per second. Every second up to 600 HP. And then also Flame Cleanse Me, because it cures Poison and Scarlet Rot. And then 15 because some weapons take 15 faith, and there's also another incantation that boosts, I think it's physical and fire affinity damage, which is pretty good. And then 22 because that's what the Blasphemous Blade takes, and Blasphemous Blade is my go-to weapon. Because it's a great sword, my favorite weapon class. It has no sheath or scabbard, which I really like. That's part of why I like great axes sometimes. Or I have them as like my main alternative weapon class. Because they don't have sheaths or scabbards. But Blasphemous Blade also has an HP regen when you kill enemies, which I always love. But even when I'm not using that, there are other weapons like Death Knight's Long Haft Axe, which I actually used in my initial run. I think it was the initial run, pretty sure. And I said that I'm not a big fan of the unique skill, but some people are, and I like that other people enjoy it. But I really liked how it looked. I really liked how it had lightning damage, because I always love when weapons have fire or lightning damage. And I also really liked its moveset, and the fact that it's a strength faith weapon. Also love that for it. But I think we can end it here. We started out here, we fought a bear boss, and then we moved to the Ancient Ruins base, making our way down, going through Templetown Ruins, going through the Northern Nameless Mausoleum, going up into Ravine North, taking out the other Red Bear boss, and making our way through the Scorpion River Catacombs. For items, we got the Highland set, the Pelt of Ralva. We got this as a random drop. We got the two-handed sword talisman, very, very good for strength builds. We got the Red Bear's Claw and the Iron Rivet set. We got the Grave Bird's Black Quill armor. We got the Ash of War, the Poison Flower Blooms Twice. We got the Gloried armor set, the Roar of Rugalea. We got Black Knight Captain Hugh, the Imped Lion, which gets you 2 points into the health stat. We got Knight's Lightning Spear. We got the ability to craft a Dragon Bolt Grace. We got a Great Ghost Glowwort. Very good, just after getting Black Knight Captain Hugh. And then we ended it off by getting Death Knight's Long Haft Axe and the Cerulean Ember Medallion +3. So, we got an entire map fragment and cleared out the entirety of that map fragment, except for the upper layer, but that's a completely different area. And Talu's Ruin Forge, which I'm not gonna do this run, at least not recorded. But we also took out both Red Bears, which, seeing how far away they are, I think that's pretty good. And I'm happy with the progress we made today. So with that being said, yeah.